Most transmissions don't fail from age. They fail from $15 mistakes. Those dealers pray you keep making. That $3,500 rebuild, one $15 fluid, and 20 minutes. 60% of transmission failures are completely preventable, and dealers know it. Today, I'm exposing the exact Japanese method ranked step by step. And the last one? It's why Osaka fleet managers haven't replaced a single transmission in 11 years, and they're praying you never find out. Let's dive in. Number 15, the rolling shift, the catastrophe, the J-turn trap. You are backing out of your driveway in a hurry. You are impatient. While the car is still physically rolling backward at 2 or 3 miles per hour, you yank the gear shifter out of reverse and drop it straight down into drive. You step on the gas and speed away. You hear a slight clunk and feel a jerk, but you think nothing of it. Inside the transmission housing, you just committed an act of extreme mechanical violence. Over time, this lazy driving habit stretches the metal band, glazes the friction material, and creates a massive delay when shifting into drive. Dealerships will tell you that you need a $3,000 internal rebuild because the forward drum is scarred. The Japanese preventative method requires absolute discipline. The vehicle must come to a mathematical 100% complete stop before the shifter ever moves. Shut-up moves between reverse and drive. It requires zero tools, takes 1 extra second of your time, and preserves the transmission bands indefinitely. But if you think rolling shifts are bad, wait until you realize how you have been parking your car. You are actively trying to snap your transmission in half every single day. Number 14, the parking powell snap, the weight transfer. You pull into a parking spot on a steep hill or a slanted driveway. You keep your foot on the brake pedal, you shove the gear shifter all the way up into park. You turn off the engine, and then you take your foot off the brake pedal. The entire car immediately rolls backward about 2 inches before violently stopping with a loud, sickening clunk. The next morning, when you try to pull the shifter out of park, it requires massive physical effort. You have to yank it so hard it feels like the plastic handle is going to break off. You are actively destroying your transmission. The Japanese sequence to prevent this is militant. Come to a complete stop, keep your foot on the brake pedal, shift the car into neutral, pull the emergency handbrake up as hard as you can, then take your foot off the brake pedal. Let the weight of the car settle completely onto the rear brake pads. Only after the weight has settled do you push the shifter up into park. Now the transmission is completely unloaded. The weight is on the brakes, where it belongs. Tomorrow morning, your shifter will glide out of park like butter. But how you park is only the beginning. The way you treat the fluid inside the gearbox determines whether you will be stranded on the highway. But before we get there, don't forget to like and subscribe to our video. You'll be glad you did. Number 13, the cold start, viscosity, delay. You wake up on a freezing winter morning. You jump in the car, turn the key, instantly drop the shifter into drive, and smash the gas pedal to get the heater warming up faster. The car feels incredibly sluggish. The transmission refuses to shift out of first gear for a long time, and when it finally does, it slams into second gear so hard it jolts your neck. You think the transmission is dying. The dealership runs a diagnostic and tells you the valve body is sticking and quotes you $1,800. They are lying. The transmission is just freezing cold, and you didn't give the software time to adjust. The Japanese method is simple. Do not demand high hydraulic pressure from thick fluid. Start the car. Wait exactly 30 seconds for the internal pump to circulate the fluid. Shift into drive, but do not touch the gas pedal. Let the car naturally idle forward out of the neighborhood for the first 2 minutes. Keep the RPMs under 2,000 until the temperature gauge moves. You give the fluid time to thin out, the pressure normalizes, and the harsh, neck-snapping shifts disappear completely. No tools required. But while cold fluid causes harsh shifts, boiling the fluid causes complete catastrophic failure, and you are probably doing it every afternoon. Number 12, the incline creep transmission killer. You are stopped at a red light on a steep incline. Instead of holding your foot firmly on the brake pedal, you use a lazy driving technique. You lightly press the gas pedal just enough to hover the car in place, preventing it from rolling backward while waiting for the light to turn green. You think you are being a smooth driver. In reality, you are turning your transmission into a blast furnace. When you use the gas pedal to hold a heavy car perfectly still on a hill, the engine side of the torque converter is spinning furiously, but the wheel side is deadlocked. The hydraulic fluid trapped between them is experiencing immense, violent shearing friction. Within 60 seconds of doing this, the temperature of your transmission fluid skyrockets past 250 degrees Fahrenheit. The fluid begins to literally boil and burn. It loses its lubricating properties and turns to a burnt black varnish that coats the internal solenoids. The strict rule: never use the accelerator to hold the car on a hill. Use the brake pedal. It keeps the torque converter RPMs low and saves the fluid from thermal destruction. But what if you aren't on a hill? What if you are just sitting in flat, endless traffic? There is a secret gear you are ignoring. Number 11. The stop-and-go fluid boil. If you live in a dense, heavily populated area, you know the misery of sitting in brutal, creeping traffic for 2 hours straight. You have your foot clamped firmly on the brake pedal, but the car is in drive the entire time. Even with your foot on the brake, the engine is still actively trying to push the car forward. The torque converter is constantly slipping, constantly fighting the brakes, and constantly generating immense internal heat. Japanese taxi drivers who navigate the endless gridlock of Tokyo use a specific preventative trick. If you are going to be completely stopped in traffic for more than 45 seconds, whether at a train crossing, a massive accident, or stadium traffic, shift the car into neutral and keep your foot on the brake. By shifting into neutral, you physically disengage the transmission from the engine's rotational force. The torque converter stops fighting the brakes. The fluid stops shearing. The temperature inside the gearbox drops significantly. When traffic starts moving, you quietly slip it back into drive. You just saved the fluid from thermal breakdown without opening the hood. And speaking of fluid breakdown, the next trick requires understanding exactly what is inside that fluid. It is the secret to fixing a terrifying vibration. Number 10. The pharmacology of friction modifiers. When your transmission fluid gets old, you might start feeling a severe, terrifying vibration when the car shifts into top gear on the highway. It feels exactly like you are driving over the rumble strips on the side of the road. Mechanics call this transmission shudder. When you take it to the dealership, they will run a diagnostic and tell you the torque converter is destroyed and the internal clutch packs are burned out. Quote is $3,500. But studying the pathology of this shudder reveals a completely different, much cheaper reality. Understanding the pharmacology of transmission fluid is crucial. A TF is not just a lubricant, it is packed with highly specialized chemical additives called friction modifiers. These chemicals allow the internal clutch plates to grip each other smoothly without slipping or grabbing violently. Over time, the intense heat of the transmission completely burns off these friction modifiers. The oil is still there, but the chemistry is dead. When the computer commands the torque converter clutch to lock up on the highway, the clutch plates lack the chemical modifiers to grip smoothly. They start rapidly grabbing and slipping, hundreds of times a second. That is the violent rumble strip vibration you feel. Before you authorize a $3,500 rebuild, you need to demand a simple fluid drain and a refill with fresh OEM fluid. Replacing the dead chemistry with fresh friction modifiers completely cures transmission shudder 80% of the time, but sometimes the fluid is perfectly fine, and the problem is the software. The next habit completely confuses the computer. Number 9. The cruise control shift. Shock, you are driving on the highway using cruise control. You approach a steep, long incline. As the car starts going up the hill, it loses speed. To maintain the exact speed you set, the cruise control computer violently forces the transmission to kick down 2 gears. The engine screams at 5,000 revolutions per minute, the shift is incredibly harsh, and the car lurches forward. This is terrible for your transmission. If you are approaching a steep grade, the Japanese preventative method is to tap the brake to disengage the cruise control. Take over manually with your foot. As a human, you can see the hill. You can gently squeeze the accelerator before the incline starts, building momentum smoothly so the transmission doesn't have to desperately kick down a gear halfway up the mountain. Once you reach the crest, re-engage the cruise control. You just saved the transmission clutch packs from a high-stress, maximum load downshift. But what happens when the computer gets so confused that it locks? You out of your gears entirely? The next trick is a lifesaver. Number 8. The limp mode highway reset. You are driving normally and suddenly the car jerks violently. The check engine and AT, automatic transmission, lights illuminate on the dashboard. The car is suddenly agonizingly slow. It refuses to shift out of third gear. Even if you floor the gas pedal, it just revs slowly and goes nowhere. You panic. You call a tow truck. The shop tells you the transmission has suffered a catastrophic internal failure. In reality, your car has entered limp mode. Modern transmissions are controlled by a dedicated computer called the Transmission Control Unit. If a single sensor, like a wheel speed sensor or a fluid pressure sensor, sends a strange temporary spike in voltage, the TCU panics. To protect the transmission from perceived damage, the software intentionally locks the gearbox in third gear so you can limp home without the transmission destroying itself. 90% the time, it is a false alarm caused by a momentary electrical glitch. Before you pay a tow truck, try the immediate software reset. Pull over to a safe spot, put the car in park, turn the engine completely off, remove the key, driver's door, and close it to shut down the retained accessory power. Wait exactly 2 full minutes. Restart the car. In many cases, the TCU reboots, sees that the sensor voltage is normal, clears the limp mode protocol, and the transmission shifts perfectly again. But what if the transmission isn't stuck but just feels lazy and unresponsive? The next hidden trick recalibrates the entire system. Number 7. The kickdown sensor recalibration. You are driving behind a slow truck. You pull into the passing lane and smash the gas pedal to the floor to accelerate. Instead of aggressively downshifting to give you power, the transmission just sits there in a high gear, slowly and painfully accelerating. It feels incredibly unresponsive and lazy. The dealership will try to sell you a transmission fluid flush or tell you the shift solenoids are failing. But the problem isn't in the transmission at all. The problem is under your right foot. Modern cars do not have a physical cable connecting the gas pedal to the engine. It is drive-by-wire. An electronic throttle position sensor, TPS, tells the computer how far you are pressing the pedal, and the computer tells the transmission when to downshift. Over thousands of miles, this sensor falls out of calibration. You press the pedal 100% to the floor, but the sensor only tells the computer you are pressing it 70%. Because the transmission doesn't know you want maximum power, it refuses to downshift. You can recalibrate this without tools. Turn the ignition to the on position so the dashboard lights up, but do not start the engine. Press the gas pedal slowly and firmly all the way into the carpet. Hold it there for exactly 15 seconds. Then, slowly, release the pedal. Turn the key off. You have just forced the computer to relearn the absolute 0 and absolute 100% parameters of the pedal. Start the car and go for a drive. The transmission will suddenly downshift aggressively and feel incredibly sharp, but while sensor lag makes the car lazy, the next driving habit actively destroys the internal clutches. Number 6. The 2-foot driving disaster. I see drivers doing this all the time. They drive an automatic transmission with their right foot on the gas and their left foot hovering over the brake pedal. They think it gives them faster reaction times. What they are actually doing is resting the weight of their left foot slightly on the brake pedal while driving down the highway. This is a transmission death sentence. If you drive with your left foot resting on the brake while pressing the gas with your right foot, you are forcing the torque converter to constantly unlock and slip at highway speeds. You are generating massive frictional heat, boiling the fluid, and destroying the converter lining. Drive with one foot. Give the computer clear, unambiguous signals. But what if the computer has already learned years of bad habits? The next trick wipes the slate completely clean. Number 5. The volatile memory software. Wipe Your Transmission Control Unit is an adaptive learning computer. It uses volatile memory to actively monitor how you drive, and it adjusts the hydraulic pressure and shift points to match your driving style. If the previous owner drove like a grandma for 5 years, the transmission literally programmed itself to shift softly and lazily. You need to wipe the memory. Since we promised no tools, we aren't going to disconnect the battery. We are going to use the fuse box. Open the fuse box under the hood. Look at the diagram on the lid and locate the fuse labeled ECU or TCU. Pull that fuse out with your fingers. Wait exactly 15 minutes. This cuts the backup, power to the volatile memory. The computer forgets the previous owner. It forgets the lazy shifts. It reverts to the aggressive baseline factory settings. Put the fuse back in and start the car. It will feel like a completely different machine. But once you wipe the memory, you have to teach it how to shift again. And if you do this wrong, it will shift worse than before. Number 4. The Japanese drive cycle relearn procedure. If you pull that fuse and wipe the transmission memory, the computer is essentially a blank slate. If you immediately take the car to a racetrack and floor it, the computer will learn chaotic, high-pressure parameters, and the car will shift violently. You have to teach it properly through a specific, controlled Japanese drive cycle. Here is the proper procedure. Find a long, empty stretch of road. Start the car and let it warm up completely. Put it in drive. Accelerate smoothly and steadily from a dead stop up to 50 miles per hour, keeping the throttle exactly at 25%. Do not lift your foot. Let the transmission shift through every gear smoothly. Once you hit 50 miles per hour, take your foot completely off the gas pedal. Do not touch the brakes. Let the car coast all the way down to a complete dead stop on its own. Repeat this sequence 3 times. You are giving the computer the perfect clean data it needs to map the hydraulic pressure for flawlessly smooth upshifts and perfectly timed downshifts. You are reprogramming the car's brain. But what if the transmission works perfectly, but the physical shifter handle is completely locked in place? The next trick bypasses a massive dealership scam. Number 3. The shift lock solenoid override. You get in the car, start the engine, press the button on the shifter, and it won't move. It is physically locked in park. The car runs fine, but you cannot put it in reverse or drive. You are trapped. You call the dealership. They tell you the internal shifter assembly has failed and quote, use $600 to replace the center console mechanism. Do not pay them. It is a $15 problem, and you can bypass it in 10 seconds. Modern shifters have an electronic safety solenoid that prevents you from shifting out of park unless your foot is on the brake. 99% of the time, the shifter isn't broken. The $15 plastic brake light switch under your pedal just burned out, so the computer doesn't know your foot is on the brake. Engineers know this switch fails, so they installed a manual, no tools override. Look closely at the plastic trim around your gear shifter. You will see a tiny rectangular plastic cover or a small slot. Pop that tiny cover off with a key, take your physical metal ignition key or a pen, insert it deep into that slot, and push down it. You are physically pushing the mechanical locking pin out of the way. While holding the key down, grab the shifter and pull it right out of park and into drive. You just bypassed the broken electronic safety and got your car on the road. Drive to the parts store, buy a $15 brake switch, and replace it yourself. But while overriding a switch gets you moving, the next secret is the most guarded reset in the entire automotive industry. Number 2, the Master Shift Adaptation Protocol. This is the holy grail of no-tools transmission fixes. If your transmission is hesitating, jerking, or shifting harshly, and you don't want to pull fuses or disconnect batteries, there is a master reset protocol coded directly into the software of almost every modern vehicle, especially BMW, Mercedes, Audi, and Toyota. Dealerships charge $180 to hook a laptop to your car and run this exact software reset. You can do it from the driver's seat in 60 seconds. Get in the car, close all the doors, turn the ignition to the on position so all the dashboard lights illuminate, but do not start the engine. Press the gas pedal completely to the floor, pushing past the little click at the bottom of the pedal travel. Hold the pedal pinned to the floor for exactly 30 seconds. Do not let up. While still holding the pedal down, turn the ignition to the off position. Now release the gas pedal. Leave the key in the ignition, do not open the doors, and wait for exactly 2 full minutes. You might hear faint clicking or whirring noises from the dashboard. That is the transmission control unit actively resetting its adaptive shift parameters and clearing out corrupted software data. After 2 minutes, start the engine and go for a drive. The harsh shifts, the sluggish response, and the confusing gear hunting will vanish. You just performed a complete factory software initialization for free. But none of these resets matter if you don't adopt the final, overarching philosophy that Japanese engineers preach above all else. Number 1, the philosophy of mechanical empathy. There are 2 types of people behind the wheel: operators and drivers. An operator treats a vehicle like an appliance. They get in, mash the pedals, yank the shifter, and ignore the machine until a red light flashes on the dashboard. They have absolutely zero connection to the physics happening under the hood. They are the ones paying $4,000 for rebuilds. A true driver possesses mechanical empathy. This is the ultimate Japanese secret. Transmissions do not die instantly. They cry out for help for thousands of miles through tiny vibrations, faint shudders, and subtle hesitations. The drivers who reach 300,000 miles on an original transmission are the ones who actually listen to those cries, check the fluid, reset the software, and never, ever perform a rolling shift. If this script just saved you from an expensive diagnostic fee, or taught you how to finally cure those harsh, jerky shifts, hit that subscribe button right now. We are building a community of drivers who refuse to be scammed by the industry. There's a video popping up on your screen right now explaining the 5 maintenance scams dealerships use to illegally void your factory warranty. Click it before you forget. I will meet you over there.